When I downsized and moved in, this was just a tiny backyard with patchy grass, chopped up concrete, and hard red clay soil. And now it overflows with produce that I can pick right outside my door. And I do it in a way that I can manage alone with no overwhelm and no huge setups. In this video, I'll show you exactly how I turned my backyard here in upstate South Carolina into a year-round grocery garden in just 6 months. Stick around until the end because I'll show you the exact choices that made this possible even after a hurricane came through and ended it before it even began. You're not going to believe how quickly it all came together though once I found the right system. And if you want to start harvesting hundreds of dollars worth of fresh, high-value food from your own backyard, even with a busy schedule, click the link in the description and join my free training. I'll walk you step by step through building a garden that actually fits your life, saves you money, and grows the foods that you and your family eat, even in a space as small as 2 feet by 4 feet. During mid-August, when we moved, I started by moving over the metal raised beds from my old garden, leaving the wooden ones behind. The new space had once been a concrete driveway that was broken up and buried under crushed stone, and then with patches of grass growing in red clay on top, which is not exactly fertile ground. So I laid down cardboard, covered it with mulch, and began filling my beds using the hugelkultur method, which is putting logs and branches in the bottom and then layer with compost and composted soil from a local company that I've trusted for over a decade. If you've ever tried to garden in clay, you know that building on top of it is one of the best ways forward. And I knew that raised beds would make a huge difference in just a few months. I also ordered a chip drop to mulch the garden pathways. My long-term goal here was to gradually build healthier soil over time by layering the mulch. It was still rough around the edges, but it was pretty much the start of making this space work for me. It didn't look like much yet, but every garden starts with this stage, and this is the part that lots of people give up on. So staying focused on gaining more freedom from massive grocery prices really helped me push forward. By September, I had planted some fall crops and the first little signs of life were sprouting. I was starting to feel hope for this garden. And then Hurricane Helene hit. The entire area flooded, and the garden beds that I had just moved and planted had to be lifted and moved aside, and my plans were completely halted because for the next 3 months I waited since contractors in our area were backed up after the storm, and I had to have my yard regraded and then a French drain installed just to make the space usable again. If you've ever worried about drainage where you live, I can't recommend enough getting a professional assessment. A French drain was the only way forward for me. By January, I could finally start fresh with a clean slate. After moving and dealing with the hurricane damage, this was my chance to build a garden that truly fit my life and one that I can manage alone with no stress, no major heavy lifting, and no overwhelm. In this garden, I chose to go with metal raised beds instead of wood because in my previous gardens, the wooden beds rotted after just 4 to 5 years. And metal beds are durable, they're easy to assemble on my own, and they're versatile. So if life changes, like needing to move again or needing to reconfigure the space, I can handle it. Some of these beds were gifted to me by companies I've worked with, and some I purchased by myself. When I shopped for them, I focused on value and also the kind of long-term investment that pays off over the years. I also incorporated self-watering beds for herbs and grow bags for potatoes and garlic, and that would give me the maximum flexibility in my small space. I even set up a small unheated portable greenhouse to extend the seasons, which is a simple addition that can make a huge difference for year-round growing. One of the first projects I tackled in my new layout was a 2x9 raised bed for a blueberry hedge. We eat a ton of blueberries, and I wanted a perennial hedge along that side of the yard that would provide both beauty and productivity for the years to come. Planting dormant ones in my microclimate meant that they could establish roots and thrive as I was busy building the rest of the garden around them. It was a major moment in building my solo resilient garden. By February, I was starting to see the vision for the space come to life. I added more beds, including 3 round ones for my strawberry patch and 2 dedicated to a perennial pollinator garden. I'd brought my strawberry runners from my previous garden so that the lineage that I've been growing for years wouldn't be lost, which was a small but meaningful decision that I made for continuity in my small space garden. During this month, I also direct sowed cool season crops using the square foot gardening method, including beets, green onions, broccoli, and salad greens. Planting this way keeps the space productive, efficient, and easy to maintain, which is perfect for somebody managing a crazy busy season of life. To prepare for the warmer months, I set up my seed starting station under the greenhouse, giving me a head start on warm weather crops. At this stage, the garden still looked small and simple, but every new seed and bed was a step forward to a year-round harvest. By March, the garden was truly coming alive. I was starting warm weather seeds indoors like peppers, tomatoes, and eggplant, while direct sowing more cool season crops outside like lettuce and radishes. Seeing this overlap of seasons gave me a huge sense of momentum because it felt like the garden was waking up for the first time and beginning to operate on a rhythm. This was also the month I focused on succession planting. By staggering crops, I could be sure that I'd have a continuous harvest of high-value produce without overwhelming myself. And it's where the garden really starts to reward your planning and keeps you excited to keep going. So for me, the first March in my garden was all about drilling down on the habits and systems that would allow this small space to eventually yield big results that I was looking for. April was a month of instant gratification in the garden. I planted my self-watering herb bed with lemon basil, a couple varieties of lemon balm, lavender, lemon thyme, German chamomile, and Irish lace marigold, and they practically took off the moment they hit the soil. Herbs are some of the highest value and easiest crops that you can grow, given so much flavor, big savings, and almost immediate returns in the garden. I couldn't believe how quickly these plants were giving back. They smell so good every time I walk past, which is also instant encouragement in the garden. I also put pineapple sage and some chocolate mint into grow bags, just to make the most of every corner of the garden. Potatoes went into 6 more grow bags, and I direct sowed corn and beans, including both pole and bush varieties, to maximize yield in small spaces. The 2 round pollinator beds were filled with native perennials, creating a haven for beneficial insects and giving the garden an extra boost of life and productivity. And by then, I could see my vision taking shape, which would be a garden that works with my time, my space, and my lifestyle. And it would be really exciting to see the color, height, and movement come alive. This was the month that I noticed just how rewarding, high-value, easy-to-grow crops could be. While other gardens might focus on massive plantings, my goal was practicality with crops that give the most return for the effort and fit into my life as a solo gardener and busy mom. By the end of April, it wasn't just a garden anymore. It was a thriving, functional space that felt alive, productive, and achievable even in a small backyard. If you want to see exactly how to choose and plant crops that actually work in a small space, produce high-value harvests, and fit into your busy life, join my free training in the link in the description. I'll walk you step by step so that you can grow food that feeds your family, saves money, and feels completely doable even if you garden alone or have limited time. By May, harvesting garlic was a satisfying milestone. It's one of the moments that makes all the planning and hard work feel tangible. The cool season crops were also wrapping up, and it was time to transition to the warm season crops that would carry the garden through the next months. I continued succession planting lettuce and harvesting the cut and come again varieties so that as one batch finished, the new seedlings were ready to take over, keeping a continuous supply of fresh greens without gaps. Seeing the first lettuce ready to harvest gave me a huge sense of accomplishment. Indoors, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant that I had started in March were ready to go into the garden. To maximize every square foot, I intercropped them with quick-growing crops like lettuce and bush beans, creating a dense, productive layout that keeps the garden yielding more food in less space. I also planted cucumbers, squash, and melons, layering in fast-growing, high-yield crops that complement the slower maturing ones. By the end of May, the garden really felt like a grocery store outside my door, with a steady flow of high-value produce supporting my meal planning and the rewarding sense of seeing my careful planning finally pay off. I truly started to feel more in control of my food supply. So the best part was that by May, the garden wasn't just giving me food, it was giving me confidence. And so by June, my garden continued to be a productive summer grocery garden with new summer harvests, and with the personal touches my kids and I added, it was a therapeutic retreat as well. Walking through the garden, I could feel the stress of the last year melt away. We were harvesting fresh salads, herbs, potatoes, and beans, and watching corn, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, melons, and squash come to life. And no, it wasn't perfect, and extreme weather meant that some plants struggled, like our corn. But that's gardening. Year 1 is about construction, observation, and patience. And even so, in just 6 months, this space was producing fresh food daily, saving hundreds of dollars, feeding my family seasonally, and giving us something the grocery store never can, which is joy, security, and satisfaction. And that's the real transformation. It wasn't just about groceries, it was about peace of mind. Knowing that I could rely on this garden gave me a sense of independence. Over the summer, I added a few more essentials like irrigation, which is a game changer, a 3-bin compost system, and a small shed so that all my tools are within easy reach. And a dear friend of mine gave me a rain barrel that I'll be incorporating, and it feels so good to be building this garden for the long haul. Every small addition feels like kind of a puzzle piece fallen into place. As fall approaches, I've planted zinnias and cosmos just for me, which is something I never did in my bigger gardens. And I tucked in a round of cucumbers, beets, lettuce, radishes, potatoes, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, green onions, and carrots. Most of my broccoli was unfortunately eaten up by armyworms, so I've had to replace those seedlings, but they're coming along pretty nicely. I'm starting spinach indoors because it's still in the 80s, upper 80s here. And also more lettuce that's going to grow underneath my greenhouse through the winter. Even with a few setbacks though, my little garden's rhythm keeps on moving forward. And if you want a step-by-step plan to create a garden like this in your own backyard, save hundreds on groceries, and grow the foods that you actually eat, click the link in the description and join my free training. I'll show you exactly how to build a small space garden that fits your life, gives you peace of mind, and actually works, even if you're busy or short on experience. This first year wasn't perfect, but it's proof of what's possible in just 6 months. You don't need acres of land, and you don't need to do it all at once. With a little consistency, some clever planning, and some patience, you can build a garden that feeds your family, saves money, and feels like home in just half a year. And the best part is that the garden keeps teaching new things all the time. And honestly, this is just the beginning, and I can't wait to show you what's next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.